Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm gonna admit a few more people from the waiting room. And it's officially 9 o'clock and it looks like there is no one left in the waiting room. So I will kick us off, I think. I'm Tim McDonald. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services here in the town of Needham, as well as the, one more person to admit, as the Assistant Emergency Management Director. I'm glad to be with you today. Chief Condon is here. And then, I'm going to try one thing. I thought I had set up Greg correctly. I'll be, whoops, two more with those. A lot of people coming in. Great. All right, looks like we got just about everybody. All right, folks. Great. Thanks everyone for joining us. Just a minute past 9, so we'll get going. This is our January LEPC meeting. It's an exciting day for us because this is our first COVID vaccination clinic for public safety agencies for Needham and Dover and Medfield. We're glad to be able to start this. It's a good step, especially after everyone's been working very hard on COVID for a long time. It's nice to sort of get to the place where it's the time to administer vaccines and hopefully the time to slowly start making progress and overcoming the epidemic. So we're very happy to be in that place. I wanted to turn it over to Dennis and allow him to introduce our Interim Emergency Management Administrator, Greg Mackin, who is also here.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Thanks, Tim. You're right. This is a big day, hopefully, for the beginning of the end of the horror that we've been dealing with. And to help us through that phase coming up, as far as vaccinations and stuff, to fill in where Michael had stepped out, is Greg Mackin. Greg is a retired deputy fire chief from the city of Boston. He brings with him a lot of knowledge of emergency situations and in management. So he's going to be able to help us and help Board of Health down at Rosemary and elsewhere as we go forward with the vaccination program. He's been with us now for about a week or so, and he's been reading up a lot on what we've been doing, and also as far as what others are doing is with vaccinations and so forth with the pandemic. So I'd really like to welcome Greg to everybody. You can see him down in the lower corner of the Brady Bunch photos, and he's a good guy, and I think everyone's going to enjoy working with Greg for the time that he's here.
Absolutely. Greg, anything you'd like to say?
You're still muted, Greg. Should be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen.
Lower left. Sorry about that. No, I'm very appreciative to have this job. Hopefully I'll be able to help you guys out a lot with the vaccinations and maybe following up on the tier 2 reporting as of now.
Great.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, we're excited to have him on board. I think it's easy to sort of think that we're only doing COVID. There's a lot of other emergency management work that goes on every day in Needham. And we're excited to be able to keep moving a few things forward, even as we deal with the challenges of continuing to contact trace for COVID, starting to ramp up vaccinations. we've got a lot of sort of things we're excited to move forward. We have a couple presenters. As usual, we have Christian from MEMA, who's going to give a brief update from the Mass Emergency Management Agency. And then we do have a presentation from Nick Childs of Mass DEP. So Christian, do you mind giving a brief update from MEMA's perspective?
Good morning, Tim, and good morning, everyone. Welcome aboard, Greg. Look forward to working with you in these next few months, and here for you if you need anything from MEMA's end. In regards to COVID update from our end, the vaccine, obviously, as Tim alluded to, is beginning today for first responders. The state has set up 3 mass vaccination sites as well, Fenway Park, Gillette Stadium, and the Big E in Western Mass. So these regional sites are for first responders currently, but DPH as well as MEMA are looking to really ramp that capacity up once we get an increased supply in vaccine. A new update in regards to food insecurity. So this was one of the priorities the governor and the director have really focused on. So we've had a lot of individuals that have had difficulty acquiring food when they're in isolation or quarantine. So working through public health, Tim and the chief, if you folks have a need for food for these individuals in your community that are quarantined or isolated, please contact me and we can get food boxes delivered to you to then distribute to your residents in need. So that's a new program that rolled out. And then non-COVID, we're continuing to work on our winter storm planning, sheltering, and other, as Tim mentioned, a number of other emergencies that face the Commonwealth, beside COVID. So with that, I'll take any questions anyone has, but I appreciate it.
If you do have any questions for Christian, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask away. Okay, well, thank you, Christian. We appreciate it. We always appreciate MEMA participating and being a great partner. Another state partner is the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. And we have Nicholas Childs, who's the Chief of Emergency Planning and Preparedness Officer for Mass DEP. Nick's going to give us an update. And Nick, I've enabled screen sharing, so you should be able to share your screen with folks if you'd like. You're still muted, Nick.
This is a leap in technology for me, so let me make sure this thing works. Oops. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yep, we see the presentation. Yep.
Okay, this may be a little chuggy because I'm having some ISP issues, which is of course no surprise for Monday morning. Okay, so thank you very much for the invite. I wanted to, when I was asked if I could present on this thing, I wanted to hit a couple of points that I've been asked by a number of other LEPCs, REPCs, and emergency management towns across the Commonwealth. So I'm going to hit a couple of points. I've got more information on this PowerPoint in detail, hopefully to answer some questions after the fact. And there's a couple of attachments that I made passed over. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me directly. Don't call my office number because none of us are there. I've given you my secret squirrel cell phone number just in case. Okay. So these are the 4 things I wanted to give some information on, and stop me with any, if you have anything specific out of this you want to hit more on in more depth, but let me just roll forward with this. So the first part about it is from a DEP emergency response side as well, from working with DEP for, in our emergency response and our emergency planning group for about 30 years, there's a lot of little pieces that I want to try and kind of like gel into one piece. You guys are obviously heavy on the public official side in this LAPC. Some LAPCs are heavy on the industry side, so this is kind of a mixed pitch. You'll recognize some of it as being, why is he telling me that? But if you were industry, it would be new to you maybe. So let's see. So first of all, if you have a hazmat incident, first impressions count. So how does that when you roll up on that facility, what's it going to be like? So if it starts off like this, you clearly know that you're going to be in hot water, that this is going to be a problematic case. You're probably not going to get what you want, what you need, and it's going to take a while to kind of unravel that ball of string. So, and from the fire side, police side, you know this in spades, but I just wanted to pitch it because we from DEP, when we are interacting with industry, we keep reminding them of this fact. You know, it's your chemical facility until something goes wrong. So we remind them of this part of the Mass statute, Mass General Law, that it is the fire chief calls the shots, and you need to make sure you explain to him what's going on, and that we are actively supporting the company, the clean contractors, everybody to use incident commands, to use NIMS, and to make sure that you understand that the fire chief is the one who gives the blessing on whether we go forward or not. So it's, again, from pitching to the industry side, as well as a little bit to our own, is what to expect on roll-up. The fire, you know, obviously the police are usually the first ones there. They're roaming around town, they're doing the thing. Fire and ambulance is close behind. So the first people at the scene are going to probably be hazmat operation level hazmat. That's maybe the police, probably your fire companies are going to be operations level. They're going to be assessing the incident, figuring out what kind of containers, what's the material, what's in the area, what are the surrounding conditions, and what's likely to happen shortly. There's also where you make that point where you're kicking it up to decide, do you need hazmat technician level stuff? Do you need the hazmat teams, DFS hazmat? Do you need DEP to bring in our emergency response team people and our emergency response contractors? Who else needs to get plugged in? And if it's going to be a long drawn out event, it's certainly, we bring in our partners at MEMA. MEMA handles our 24/7 dispatch. So when we get a call on it, they are also been getting a heads up on it. So it works pretty well. So it's those instant first impressions that we want to convey, again, particularly to the industry side. We've had some cases. I had a case with a chemical facility where the head chemist came out to meet us at the gate with fire, police, everybody at hazmat, and started off by telling us that he would explain what had happened in this hazmat in such simple terms that even his wife could understand it. That did not go over well. He did not have that kind of the presence to convey competency and professionalism. And in that particular case, he spent most of his time in the back of a cruiser, keeping warm while we figured out what was going on. Conferring accountability, obviously the fire service knows this in spades, but it's also all of the employees involved. It's tough to roll forward on whether you've got leaking drums when you've got missing people. You know that. And receptors, very often the facility needs to be reminded, you live in that community. You need to know what's just over the fence line. And that's part of the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act from EPA, to be able to convey that we don't want to have us a surprise. You know, you're at the chemical facility and they say, well, by the way, there's a drinking water supply behind us. The nursing home is on the left. The puppy pound is on the right. We want to know that up front. So it's about that pre-incident relationship. This is an LEPC pitch. Doing the walkthroughs, check-ins and updates with that facility. What's new, things change. Production processes can change overnight. What's new in the business. They have I believe it's 60 days to update their tier 2 reports. But if they're making a major change, you should know about it before they've even started turning screws and changing the process. And we expect them to be a partner with you on that. So when we roll in, we are asking that question: what have you been doing with the locals to be ready before something went wrong? And site plans. This has been something that we have been working with our partners at DFS Hazmat at the State Emergency Response Commission to pitch that every tier 2 report, when it comes in, should be coming in with a simplified facility map oriented and pitched to the emergency response community. It should have doorways, alarm panels, sprinklers, obviously from the fire side, hardwired stuff like where there are cameras, meters inside the facility. If there's a way of being able to tell what's going on inside a facility or inside of a chemical storage room without sending a human being in there, because they've got remote monitoring, we want to know about it. And we want to hopefully tap into that information. We also want to know where all the drains go. It's something very simple. But we have had cases where the loading dock drains in one direction, the main facility drains in another direction. There's a holding tank, there's a this, there's a that. We want to know about that. And of course, utilities in general. So preparing for that emergency, getting ahead of it, pre-planning it obviously is about deconflicting to making sure we know what is the time, come up before the emergency, just come up with your top 10 priorities for that facility and have the facility tell you what their top 10 priorities are. Very often there's a match, and it usually gets into that sticking point is like, how long are we going to be down because we're losing money, things like that. That is an industry priority. It's not usually a public safety priority, but it can go on the list. We can acknowledge that as being something. Knowing the community, again, and doing the all hazard thing. You don't want to be getting the tunnel vision of thinking I'm just dealing with that one particular chemical of methyl ethyl death, but right behind that wall is where they've got a 10,000 gallon propane tank or something else. It's kind of keeping that all hazard, what else is going to go wrong view on this one. Operational vulnerabilities, if they lose power, there's a facility that we were dealing with which had to have a very robust power system, and if it was cut, it could let certain chemical chain reactions go to town, and that would have caused another hazard. So just shutting the power off before moving in on something was a problem. It's also keeping the citizen emergency response teams plugged in this thing. As a former emergency manager for my town, letting my CERT people know about knowing about the hazmat side of thing was a good opportunity. It's a training opportunity. It's something that your general citizen doesn't always get. It gives you a good chance to be able to practice your communication skills as the fire, police, hazmat guys with a group of citizens who are dedicated to working with you anyway, to make sure you're doing that good risk communication. So this is my second piece I wanted to pitch, which is Chapter 21E. There's more in this than I think you need right now, but I just wanted you to have these slides in your back pocket. So from our DEP perspective, all hazmat incidents are obviously local. So we are supporting the local responders in handling that oil hazmat incident. We expect that you have some training, operational level equipment you need at the local responder level, and ready to put it on the ground. You guys are going to be there in minutes. We are going to be there hopefully within an hour or two. It's the same with the hazmat team. You've got the stuff to put it on and get the control begun. And all releases of oil and hazmat have to be cleaned up. Whether that means it's reportable to DEP or not is another issue. Even those small gasoline spill from Granny's Cadillac on the road, that gasoline needs to still be cleaned up. We don't want it going into the environments. These things add up. If you need DEP to take the lead on it, we will. It's under our rules and regulations. We ask the person who had the spill, owners, operators, if they are prepared to go forward, and if they are not, then we will with our contractors. And if we do it with our contractors, if we regularly ask the local officials, what kind of supplies have you used up? And we'll get our contractor usually to reimburse you, to give you replacement supplies so you stay whole. We're always thinking about, because as soon as this hazmat's done and we leave and pack up before your delivery from New Pig or something else, there's going to be another spill. So we want to make sure that you are made whole again and have enough equipment to be able to for that next incident. That being said, DEP cannot do cost recovery to help locals get their money back from the insurance company from a PRP. We as DEP cannot get involved in that. But the good side is that you can use our Chapter 21E law to do direct cost recovery. And this is how. The money is usually the part that gets most people's attention here. The law is the Mass Oil and Hazardous Material Prevention and Response Act. It defines who's responsible and it defines what actions have to happen. And this is the link to it. So it defines who can take the actions. So it defines the person in the law. It's necessary and appropriate actions. And it's any person who is liable is the person. That person can also be the municipality. So that means that you have standing to do recovery. So this is the specific piece. You can refer to Section 2. We, the town of Needham, are a person under the regulations, and we have the right to be able to request this. You are the person who is liable, and this is every way to explain how you could become liable for that oil or hazardous material since not you, but the person who had the spill. So it sets out, you're the person, they're the ones who had it, and you have to cover costs and damages. And these are the specs on it. I would emphasize that it can be broadly interpreted, but I would again suggest that there's a reasonable standard for this. We had a case where there was a small spill of 15, 20 gallons into a pond. When we got out there, the fire department had put so many white absorbent pads over the top of this thing, the entire pond was almost covered in absorbent pads. That was beyond reasonable. They got some of it back. Most of it, they were told to go out there with a boat and fish them back out because they were clean, put them back into inventory. So it's about a reasonable standard. So what we suggest to go along with that, local emergency spill planning before you need it. What equipment, what are you willing to handle, knowing your resources, what towns near you have it. Several towns on the coast have got the spill response trailers for coastal incidents. Those can be used at a request to that town, and usually they'll loop us in there because we still own them and stock them. So you have spill trailers that are available to you pretty close by. We've got state resources, rather extensive state resources. And we want to keep up, again, that necessary and appropriate action to keep this thing scaled. And it's also documenting your time and resources. You've got your incident reports, you take your photographs, that's always terrific. And detail your thought process. Why did you do what you think? Why did you do what you did? Very briefly. And in the heat of the moment, it's easy to explain. 6 months later, when the insurance company is fighting on you, you have to kind of, you have to say, well, you should have been there because we thought it could have gone left, it could have gone right, and it didn't. That still makes it reasonable. Another piece that we worked on with the State Emergency Response Commission was an oil and hazardous material commodity flow study. This was a statewide project. It was funded through Homeland Security, state share grant. We had put the request together with our partners in Department of Fire Services, through the CERC, through MEMA, to analyze the oil and hazardous material that was being transported within and through Massachusetts. Tier 2s tell us what's at the chemical facilities, but there's very little information, even on the end of the new Tier 2s, about how a particular chemical moves through. And particularly if you have something that's going from Rhode Island up to New Hampshire, there's no information out there available about what's in transport. So you wouldn't see that. So what we wanted to do was kind of pull together all the information that was available, dig through much data sets to be able to kind of explain this is what's moving through the Commonwealth and could be moving through your area as a town. So we primarily used the Tier 2 databases. That was by far the easiest to manipulate, but we also went through Department of Revenue because of taxation on products. We went through the Army Corps of Engineers to get the water sector. So for the barges and chemical transports by ship, and our Mass GIS program. And we developed a custom data analytical tool to kind of digest this. And it was a huge amount of information. So what we found was not what we expected to find. We had hoped to have a pretty easy explanation of saying that, a lot of chlorine moves to the MWRA, or it moves up to the Northeast regions. So we have a lot of ammonia facilities going down to the coast because of refrigeration, things like that. We thought it would be a pretty black and white. What we found was that there was a lot more challenges than we expected. And that is useful unto itself. There were inconsistencies in the terminology used. The term gas was used regularly. Is that gasoline? Is that a gas? Is that propane? Ambiguous units, pounds and gallons were regularly confused. A lot of data entry errors across the board. Unclear and missing routes for transport, inconsistent uses of zero as a placeholder instead of answering the question. A lot of cases where somebody had taken last year's tier 2s or many years back, and every year they just refreshed the date and submitted it just to get past it. We found that fairly often. And a lot of use of other. That's just about completely useless. So we are pressing on that again. So we ended up with 32,000 data entry points from all of these facilities, from all these data sources, but 60% of them had serious data errors. So that is a good piece that we didn't expect. And it basically goes back to making sure that every time those tier 2 reports in it, that somebody puts a good set of eyes on it and we do some quality control. We raise that as being a priority issue for the State Emergency Response Commission, but that burden really lands on the LEPCs. Make sure that those facilities that are saying I've got 1 gallon of this or 1 million gallons of that is actually accurate. We had a case with one hospital who was reporting that they got 10 shipments a year of well over 1 million gallons of heating oil. That was simply not possible. It was an easy pickup and correction, but it's that kind of low-hanging fruit. So we were able to get some good information out of it, and I sent a copy of the overall report, and we are using that to kind of improve our CERC tier 2 methodology. We also sent it to EPA because they are the keepers of EPCRA and the tier 2 process, so that they would know this is something that we think needs to get fixed. But we broke down a lot of the chemicals that were involved into the DOT classes. That was considering the very broad way that things were answered. This was a way of trying to group it back down into a useful set. So out of that, the most prevalent oil and hazardous material in transport, and this has been true for forever, this matches the DOT reports, this even matches our Department of Environmental Protection, our spill response logs. We go back and check to see what was spilled, where it was spilled, and kind of like tease out some data from that. Flammable liquids and flammable gases are still number 1, and corrosives are number 2 by volume that is being transported into, out of, and through Massachusetts. Now, from looking at the facility side and linking the DOT transport to it, 72% of facilities handle only one of the DOT class chemicals. That, it's not like every one of them has got 100 different chemicals that you have to worry about. This kind of gels it down. It's a small universe per facility. And only 3% handle 5 or more DOT class chemicals. I think that's pretty useful. We also did the majority of critical infrastructures for towns across the Commonwealth are generally within a half mile. We put a buffer zone out and within a half mile of these chemical facilities. So this is the case where, you've got the police station or the fire department or your emergency management headquarters, but it backs up to the rail line, to a rail siding. It backs up to, a chemical facility or something else, a truck yard. We've got a lot of our vulnerable stuff that we need during an emergency is in that immediate half mile zone. So we span up for every single town in the Commonwealth, and I sent a copy of it by PDF to you guys, kind of a bigger, broader overview of what this looks like. So this is Needham's, and the bulk of what you see, you've got sodium hydroxide. I assume that's for water treatment. You've got a lot of diesel, heating oil, gasoline moving through, and you've also got a good bit of sulfuric acid in your area. Looking back at the facilities, most of it is at the left side, the white side. You can see there's a little bit of flammable gas. There's a little bit of non-toxic gas, some poison gas, a little bit. 3, you've got a lot of flammable liquids, a little bit of oxidizers, a good bit more of corrosives again. Again, it matches the same breakdown of what you can expect. And this is also to help you pitch when you want to go for those grants about what equipment you need, what resources, what personal protective equipment. this hopefully helps you say that, this is what you need to target your hazards. Don't put a lot of effort into going for that methyl ethyl death. One compound at a small amount at the edge of town, it's more like looking at the one where you've got your sensitive receptors and all your critical infrastructures, and 10,000 gallons of propane can make a major emergency. So this is the last thing I wanted to hit on, because this is the question I get almost every day. Now, I was the one for Department of Environmental Protection who was the lead on this project, so I wanted to give you a little bit more detail on where we're going. So for those who are not in the firefighter community, fire departments use different types of foam for different types of incidents. The most common foam out there is Class A foam. Class A foam is used to help water penetrate into combustible materials like wood, paper, things like that. It's an effective way of extinguishing fires. It is generally alcohol-based, and it is not an issue, it's not a problem from our perspective. Class B foams are for flammable liquids and polar solvents. That has become a lot more of an issue. That is, your gasoline cases, your ethanol spills, acetone, things like that. Out of Class B foams, there are three groupings of Class B foams that I would want to talk about. The first one is what we refer to as the legacy foams. These are the pre-2003 manufactured foams. There's a chemical in these that is of driving concern to us, which is perfluorinated compounds. That is, there are fluorine in the firefighting foam. The old foams had very high levels of this. And we have this is a national issue. This is stuff that's in groundwater. This is stuff that comes from a lot of other sources, but we're focusing on being able to try and take a bite out of it through the fire service piece. And it is toxic. It is causing problems down to the parts per trillion level when it's found. It's a nasty chemical. And it was considered to be a miracle one. This is the Teflon on frying pans. This is the lining of Jiffy Pop, I shouldn't say a brand name, but popcorn, the bags so the popcorn doesn't stick while it's in the microwave oven. They have used PFAS for that. It's the waterproofing of a lot of our gear, a lot of our, rain gear, things like that. So what's currently out there? So we ran a take back program through all the fire departments in Massachusetts. DEP paid for it. We used our contractor for it. We tracked it. We took back a ton of this old foam that was a real problem, and we sent it out for destruction. That was a win. What do you do next? When the fire department surrenders that foam, they've got current foams. That is younger than 2003. These foams still contain fluorinated compounds. We have been testing foams at firehouses, different brands of it, just to verify it. And lo and behold, it still got it. Some of the manufacturers have been telling us that, it shouldn't be in there. It's coming off the production process. Some of them still use it and kind of a little bit coy about the naming of this thing, but it's still fluorinated compounds and it's still an issue. So where are fire departments going? This is your primary tool. This is the thing, this is the current foams with a little bit of PFAS, and this is what's all over the Commonwealth, all over New England, all over the US. There is no program to take it back off your hands right now because it's such a huge issue. But what we are asking for is to consider alternates when you replace. Oh, away. So the future foams that are now actually are out on the market are fluorine-free foams. They're known as 3F foams. These have no perfluorinated compounds in them. We have been working with Department of Fire Service in Mass. We've also been working with our partners at DEPs in all the New England states, particularly Connecticut, and with Connecticut Fire Academy, Fire Marshal's Office. And we have looked at fluorine-free foams that already meet the NFPA 11 and 18 and meet Underwriter Lab standard. And we bought foam off the shelf from distributors. And this foam had to be usable in existing firefighting equipment, existing firefighting technology. And we paid to send all of those foams to our contract laboratory to verify that the claims were true. And hopefully in the next 30 days, we're going to be issuing out a short memo that 5 of these foams are the big ones that are the most prevalent, that most of them are completely fluorine free. And please consider using these foams as replacements, either deadlining your current fluorinated foams and using the fluorine-free foams, or when you use the current foams, because life safety is still the priority. When you've used those foams, please consider replacing them with a more environmentally friendly product. And what that's also meant is when foam is used in the field on an incident, we are asking that you get DEP involved in it. Probably it's going to either be a release or a threat of release of something significant like this tanker accident. Those are the easy ones to explain, that you had a tanker full of gasoline. Yes, you used whatever foam you had in as much as you needed to protect public safety. No question about that. It does change what we talk about for the cleanup. That is our jurisdiction. And when we're talking to the company and we're talking to the cleanup professionals, we are adding in, you need to test for fluorinated products. You need to show that you've got that cleaned up as well as the gasoline that got out. So those are my 4 high points I wanted to pitch to you guys. This is my contact information. Like I said, my desk is probably covered in spider webs by now and dust. Please feel free to call me on my cell phone or email me if you have any questions. And we're here to support you as the LEPCs. There's a lot of towns in Massachusetts that do not have active LEPCs, and when an emergency happens, it shows. We want those active partners, and we really appreciate you being out there. You can give us good information up front, and we're trying to get it done as effectively, cheapest, and safest as possible. And this is if we were meeting in person, I would be handing out these as our green magnets to everybody under the sun to stick and put anywhere, so that you have our number for any type of hazard that you feel that DEP would be involved in or interested in. This is how you get a hold of us 24/7. And our target goal is always to get back to you within 15 minutes, to have one of our emergency response people get back to you. Okay, that's my pitch.
Thank you so much, Nick. Good morning, everyone. It's Katie King, Assistant Town Manager. Tim and Dennis both had to step out to attend to the vaccination clinic. So it's emergency planning in action. Any questions for Nicholas?
I had one question. So the last of that AAA foam was 2003, the legacy foam.
Yes.
What is the time frame on that? I can't remember that you can, the life expectancy of the foam.
For us taking it back? No,
from like, how good is it if the last production of it was in 03?
Okay, the last production was actually, by law, was in 2002. We added 1 more year to the program to get that, foam that had just made it out on the last day from the production facility and had maybe been in the back shelves of the vendors, to make sure we got that foam as well. We have beaten the bushes around the state many times through the fire chiefs associations, through call volunteer fire associations, through just being out in the field. And we took back a lot of foam for destruction. And that made a big significant difference. But the issue clearly is current foam is a problem too. It's just not nearly as bad as it was. And that current foam, it has a 10-year shelf life. So it's extending out there. I am talking regularly with the fire marshal's office, with Peter Strosky, about what we could do to try and lighten the burden on that. But it's kind of hinging on, getting the word out about fluorine-free foams instead.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Any general comments from any member of the committee? Great. The next LEPC is scheduled for February 8th. So we will see you all then. Have a great day.
Thank you much, guys.
Thank you.